information, you guys have the QR code up here. And it's the same QR code you'll find in the brochure as well. So you're right to where you need to be.
Gabby, I like those trifold.
Thank you. It's so fun to make. I've never made one before.
Then, Dr. Ewing, what are your thoughts on the trifold?
I said A plus as soon as Dr. Coughlin.
The simple one. The finer things.
It is.
I did learn from trial and error though that you can't print out a trifold regularly because it'll like flip instead.
You gotta flip on the corner of the, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how to do that, so I ended up just putting it in Google Docs and I like flipped the entire one upside down. Yeah, a suggestion real quick. It's like, I've noticed that every time I put it on here, it just slides like that.
It's
It like gets away. Okay.
Well, welcome, folks. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're here to celebrate Ms. Kriley and her journey becoming a teacher candidate. She's here to answer 3 questions over the next 30 minutes. Who does she aspire to be as a teacher? What experiential education opportunities does she engage in to become a better teacher? Now she's going to maximize her student teaching internship at Bermudian Springs High School here in a few weeks coming in the spring semester. Just as a reminder, Gabby, please, when we get to the time, and for our online audiences, we'll ask you for questions as well as the face-to-face group. We will ask that you repeat the question that you get for the online audience so they can hear that really well. You have 30 minutes and the time is yours.
All right, sounds good. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Gabrielle Kriley. I do not know some of you guys in the room, so I'm excited that you guys are here. Welcome. So what I'll be doing here is I'm going to be just telling you a little bit about myself, a little bit about my teaching philosophy, who I am as a teacher, and then a little bit about my cooperating center that I'm going to be teaching at in the January. But first, I'd like to say a couple thank yous because it's super important for me to acknowledge those who have been there for me and those who have helped me get to where I am today. So I'd like to thank my family. There's never been a time that they haven't just picked up the phone for me, sometimes even drive 2 hours to State College just to give me flowers and let me pet my dog because they knew I needed that kind of time. I'd like to thank my friends. They've always been there for me. Again, if I pick up the phone, they're the first ones to answer. And there has never been a time that they didn't judge me, or they did judge me. They never judged me. They never judged me. They always listened. And they were always there for me, especially my cohort here. You'll see lots of smiles that never went away. They were always very cheerful and always helped bring the best out in me and the other cohort members. But first, a little bit about me. So again, my name is Gabby Kriley, and I'm way beyond just a teacher. I'm a pet owner. As you'll see, I have a couple different pets back here. I'm a cart driver. That's the thing I like to do whenever I show at my local fair. I love my coffee. I love my Jesus. I love agriculture, obviously. And I love my family and friends. So this is just a couple small little things about who I am beyond just an educator. And hopefully that'll show a little bit as I go through this as well. So first, the question is, who do I aspire to be like as a teacher? So there's a couple different points I'd like to state, but before I dive into that, you'll actually see in your brochure here that I have a mission statement and a vision statement. My mission statement is to inspire and encourage students to build themselves into desirable employees. This is me just simply saying that I want them to be able to leave the classroom and leave high school and be ready to go into the work field and get the job of their dreams, or at least begin to work towards that. My vision statement is I see each of my students to discover their interests and grow to love being curious about agricultural topics. I also see a classroom that builds close relationships with the community through leadership training opportunities, service learning, and classroom encouragement. So this is simply just me giving you a little bit of an idea of what you'd see in my classroom. So again, what you'll see in through your brochure is this picture, a little bit more zoomed in so you can read it. But ultimately, this is what you'd see in my classroom. So picture this. You walk into the classroom, it's your first day of the school. You're really nervous. You don't know anything about agriculture. That's okay. In these classes that I will be teaching, I'm going to create a positive work environment, somewhere that the students are excited to see themselves grow and learn about agriculture. And work is going to be expected of them. They're going to be pushed. They're going to be encouraged not to fear failure and to see that as a way to grow. I'm going to provide work field preparation. So we're going to be learning a lot of different technologies that are in the work field right now and learning how to utilize those to make a desirable employee, as said earlier. And then lastly, I truly do believe that success is at the fingertips of every single student that will walk into my classroom. No matter how they may present themselves, no matter how much they may know, there's always some sort of success that can be found right at the fingertips. And so finding that is going to be essential to have within my classroom. So to be able to maintain a good classroom, though, you kind of have to have some ground rules set out. So rather than having what we call rules, we have expectations that I would like my students to be able to meet within my classroom. The first one is always come to class prepared. Be prepared. This is basically saying, I want you to come with your pencil, your pen, and just be ready to learn. The second one is create challenges. Don't just do something that you think is going to be really easy and simple in an easy A. That's not going to push you. That's not going to teach you how to be a more desirable employee. That's just the bare minimum. Let's get by. We don't want that. Third, don't fear failure. That was something that I know I struggled with in high school, and I wish somebody had told me that it's not worth fearing, because failure is only going to make you grow into somebody bigger and better than who you already are right now. Be positive. Always come in with a smile. If you don't come in with a smile, at least leave with a smile. That's all I ask. And then fifth is take responsibility. That's simply saying if you break something, come to me, say, hey, Miss Kriley, I broke this girl bit. Can you help me fix it? Or saying, hey, Miss Kriley, I think I may have lost the wood glue. Can you help me find it? Take responsibility. It makes the whole classroom just go easier and smoother, and everybody has a good time. We also have some procedures to help get through the class. So this is something that is going to happen every day in our classroom. We're going to move through it. So first is find your items in your seat. Second is find the posted daily tasks. So maybe that's a bell ringer or just me saying, okay, this is what I need you guys to do before we begin class. Go ahead and do that now. Third, participate. I want you to be engaging. I want you to be pushing yourself. I want you to be learning. Fourth is clean up your mess. I am not a maid. I am not your personal cleaner. Please clean up after yourself. And then fifth, leave the classroom quietly. We're not a bunch of monkeys. We're not going to act like a bunch of monkeys. We're going to treat ourselves like we are an employee leaving our employment location. But obviously, not every student is going to follow every one of these expectations. They're going to act out. They might not want to do what you want them to do. So I have a list of some consequences. Hopefully we never have to use these, but there's a good chance I might. So the first is just reminding them of the rules. That's the general class. If a group of students is acting up, I'm just going to say generally to the whole class, hey guys, just a reminder, we have a set of consequences here, or we have a set of expectations that I want you guys to meet. Second is an individual warning. So sitting down with the students saying, hey, I need you to just stop doing what you're doing. It's not all right in our classroom. Third is an individual conversation. So asking them, why are you acting up? What's going on? This isn't like you, Jimmy. Let's talk about this. Fourth is having a conversation with the guardian. It's important sometimes to bring the parents involved because some students might just not have respect for the teacher, but they have respect for their parents. So that's a good conversation to have. And then fifth is having a visit with the principal or being written up. So these consequences were adapted from the Bermudian Springs High School rules that they had. So they helped me create this. And with every well-managed classroom comes some activities and fun things that students can do to get engaged in learning. So one of the projects that my students would complete is something that I actually had the opportunity to learn how to make in high school as well, which is simply a wooden basket. This wooden basket can be used for all kinds of different things, such as holding plants, holding perfume, or ultimately whatever your heart desires. It has the holes in the bottom for the draining though for the plants. And this is just a chance for the students to really learn how to use the tools, how to cut, how to make measurements, how to cut at certain degrees, how to use wood glue. There's so many different things that the students can learn from this specific project that can be utilized as they move on in carpentry class. Which, speaking of carpentry, that is one of the many classes that I would love to teach one day in my own dream program. So I have a lot here. You can see it on the brochure whenever you zoom in. But ultimately, I'll be teaching animal science in my dream program, agriculture, environmental awareness. I think that's super important to be aware of what's around you. Horticulture, I love plants, such as the poinsettias that we have here. Carpentry, as I said before, agriculture mechanics, and agriculture explorer. Now, I will be honest, I'm not super comfortable with agriculture mechanics quite yet. That's something that I will be teaching this spring at Bermudian Springs. And although that class does intimidate me right now, I had a really great piece of advice from a PA teacher who said, mechanics never change. Once you learn them, you know them. So I was very excited to hear that because that was just a sense of reassurance that I needed to hear. So this is just my dream program. But in my program, we also have things called FFA and SAE. So we're going to touch a little bit on that as well, because that's essential in a agricultural classroom. So some of my students will be integrating FFA, which I personally see as future leaders of America. And it used to stand for future farmers of America. It no longer stands for anything. So we will be holding opportunities for our classroom to engage the students in the community together. So one way that we would be able to do that is by holding events to honor some of our fallen heroes within the community and bringing that all together and acknowledging that the students see and recognize how valued they are within our community. Secondly is our SAE, which actually stands for Supervised Agricultural Experience. And so what we actually have now is a thing called SAE for All, which is making sure that every student has the opportunity to engage in an SAE. So one way that I would implement this into the classroom is by having students pick their project and create their SMART goals, and would be expected to strive towards their goals at the beginning to the end of the school year. So this is a chance for the students to be able to learn and engage in maybe a career field that they're interested in. They're interested in research. This is a chance for them to research. They're interested in owning a farm, maybe working on a farm. There's so many different opportunities a student can take with this, and I'd love to see what they come up with. As well as it's important and absolutely essential in my program to involve the community. So what is one way that my students would be able to partner with the community and simply give back? Well, as discussed a little bit earlier in the FFA portion of the classroom, we would be able to have some conversations with our conservation district and seeing about maybe planting some trees in honor of our fallen heroes and be able just to give back to the community. So here I have a quick video for you guys. This is a little bit just about Bermudian Springs.
Welcome to Bermudian Springs High School, home of the Eagles in Adams County, Pennsylvania. Bermudian Springs is also home of the Bermudian Springs Agri-Science Program led by Ms. Diana Jarima and Ms. Cheyenne Weibel. Here at Bermudian Springs Agri-Science Program, we have approximately 230 students enrolled in our program, which contains various forms of support through facilities to encourage hands-on learning, such as 2 inviting classrooms, 2 immersive labs, 2 blooming greenhouses, and an outdoor learning lab available to the students. Here at Bermudian, we also focus on the agricultural production, which teaches various subjects throughout this year. Some of these subjects include wildlife, invasive species, disassembling and reassembling engines, welding, safety in the workplace, nutrition and reproduction, global agriculture, preparing a greenhouse, and management skills, as well as biorenewable systems for all. Bermudian also has a wonderful FFA program. Our 2021 to 2022 officer team is led by Cheyenne, Isaiah, Paige, and Jordan as they prepare to lead a chapter of approximately 28 members, as well as the members grow daily. Through our FFA program, students immerse themselves through various CDE competitions, such as horse judging, apple judging, and all other interests that they may find to have as they journey through their educational experience. They also have non-competitive events such as farm show, various FFA conferences, and a banquet to recognize their members and all of their hard work throughout the year. To attend some of these events, though, students must raise money to support their members' attendance. Some of these fundraisers are dumplings at homecoming, fall products from local farms, and a bingo basket / silent auction event through the Alumni FFA program. Not only is our FFA active in competitions and classroom activities, but we also partake in supervised agricultural experiences, which is about 85% of the student population. Students often choose to partake in a placement project, working with or without the benefits of payment. Some students also choose to partake in improvement projects of their SAE experience. To complete their SAE projects, students must have various facilities to utilize and maximize their experiences. They're allowed to use the greenhouses, a lab that contains metalworking and mechanical tools, as well as immersive labs to utilize their project improvement in. The only requirement is that the student is asked to meet 20 hours and they must create goals and meet 3 of these goals by the end of the semester.
Good. So from there, one of the reasons that I actually had made this video was an opportunity to be able to create recruitment. So how would we bring some of the students into the classroom? We saw from some of those videos, it looked pretty cool to be able to be hands-on learning within the classroom, whether you're welding, or you might be grinding, or even just growing some plants in the greenhouse. So utilizing a video or social media is one of the many ways that you can engage your students and bring more students into the classroom. Show them what they're missing and what they have the opportunity to be able to do themselves. There we go.
Right there?
There we are. So from there, sorry, technology is just not wanting to be my friend today. This is fine. There we go. That leads us into our next question. What experiential education opportunities have I engaged in to be a better agricultural educator? So I've had many wonderful classes here at Penn State that have been able to have provided the opportunity to create such an educator as myself. And so there's a couple classes that I'd like to point out that I have had myself. So first is the class, which was Education in Society. So this class was one of my intro classes to being an educator in general. And I love some of the philosophies and technologies that we have learned in that class. And I think it's really essential that we understand how the minds work of a student. And to be able to really connect with them, you have to understand that. So this was one of the many classes that I had taken that was able to really give me that firm understanding of how the mind of a teenager versus a child may look. Secondly, was my Bio 220W class. There's a lot of different things I actually had done in that class that I'm so excited to integrate into my own program as well. But this class had taught me just simply how to explore nature and observe the outside world. So this class had taught me to conduct research. It had taught me the absolute insane speed that invasives can spread, and being able to have that hands-on experience was just so beneficial to me because that's something that I never really quite understood. I knew invasives spread quickly, but not as quickly as I realized. So I thought that was really cool. That was a duckweed activity that we had done that I plan to do this spring with my students. And then lastly, one of the classes that I had taken was AEE 311. That was one class that taught me about how to be an FFA advisor. Coming from the school that I came from, we had an FFA program, but it wasn't really much of an FFA program as it was a title. So being able to learn how to be a good advisor for my students and understand the history behind FFA and how to be emerging the students into the classroom, I thought was really, really cool and is going to really benefit me as an educator. So what are some of the things that I can bring to the table then? Well, as you already know, I am an agriculture and extension education major, but I also am minoring in international agriculture as somebody who loves being outside of the United States, but yet has never traveled anywhere. As well as I bring a bunch of certifications to the table. So I do have what they call the NSTMOP. So this is the National Safe Tractor and Machine Operation Certification, as well as I got the Google Project Planning Certification, which I think is going to be very beneficial to me as an educator who's going to be planning a lot of events, and taking what I've learned from that program is going to really help benefit me and my students in organization. I also have the National CPR Foundation certification, simply just saying I could perform CPR if needed, as well as OSHA 10, which is something that I actually think completed back in high school and have kept up with ever since. I think it's important that students understand the safety hazards that could happen in the classroom and in the workplace, as well as myself know what those hazards may be, so that I can keep an eye out and make sure that we're all staying fairly close to OSHA standards. And so here's a little quote that I really enjoy. When you're pouring into others, don't forget to pour into yourself. It's very essential for teachers to be able to provide professional development for themselves. There's always something changing in agriculture, and there's always something new you can learn because it's such a big and broad topic. So some of the ways that I was able to pour into myself, into my knowledge, is that I got to attend the PAAE conference, and one of the big things that I had gotten to take part in was the beekeeping workshop, which is what you'll see in the picture there. I got to handle some bees. I love bees. That's one thing I can tell you all about. They're just the coolest. I also got the chance to attend the NAAE conference, which is the National Association of Agricultural Educators, as well as PAAE is Pennsylvania Association of Agricultural Educators. So at the NAAE, I got to attend a conference or a workshop called I Wasn't Ready for This, which was simply teaching me the importance of understanding the different learners in my classroom and how to be able to handle that. And they had activities to be able to provide perspective to those who may not know what it's like to be dyslexic or what it's like to be overwhelmed with activities. And so they provided different chances for us to be able to put ourselves in their shoes, which was really cool. I took part in the FAST program, so we learned a lot about the NFA, which is the National, the New Farmers of America, the New Farmers of America, which is one of the very beginning stages of what FFA is now. As well as I got to facilitate how to be a great reporter at the FLC, the Fall Leadership Conference for FFA. But before I ever came to college, or at least came to Penn State University Park, what are some things that I had the opportunity to partake in that got me to where I am today? Well, I got to be an intern for the Chaco Valley Honey, which is in New Kensington, Pennsylvania. And I got to work with some of the bees there, create the production of the honey, which is really cool, and just get that hands-on opportunity that I think I can bring into my classroom. As well as I had various club leadership opportunities. I was heavily involved in 4-H. I was fairly involved within my school as well. And being able to serve in those leadership positions was something that I can bring back to my officer team and say, okay, this is something that had worked for me. Maybe give that a try. And how can I make some of my students feel welcome though? I know that's sometimes a little bit harder to do. You got 20 kids in your classroom. How can you make this happen? Well, like I said earlier, I did take a workshop to be able to teach myself how to put myself in their shoes, which was really great, as well as utilizing resources such as parents and counselors, calling up parents saying, hey, I've had this activity. I'm not really sure how little Johnny might react to it. I'd love your advice. How do you suggest I go about this? Utilizing the parents is essential in my opinion because sometimes my mom knew more than I did about my own dyslexia, I'll be honest, which is one of the other things I have on this list, my own personal experiences. I also think it's important to be able to research about the cultures in your classroom. So if you have a student that you know that comes from a different background, I think it's important that you take the time out of your day, just 5 minutes, and do some research. Find out where they come from. Find out some of the different holidays, things that you can celebrate within the classroom to make them feel as though they are wanted and welcomed here. And then lastly, some of my courses that I have taken, the WFED, the work field education classes, which really just focused a lot on students with disabilities and being able to accommodate in your classroom. So the last question is, how am I prepared to maximize my student teaching experience? So welcome to Bermudian Springs High School. So here we have a wonderful FFA program, and the numbers are constantly growing. We have some really cool, exciting year-round fundraisers that you guys, I would love to see you there. We make dumplings, and it's quite a hit. One awesome thing about the school is that they have a lot of supportive staff and community members that support the FFA program as well as the agricultural program as a whole, which I'm super excited to see and experience. They are a 2-teacher program, and about 85% of the students do partake in the SAEs here at Bermudian, which I think is a really great number. And again, it's always growing bigger and bigger because students are seeing how awesome SAEs really are. And then lastly, we do have a wide range of topics that we are teaching. So among the 2 teachers that we do have here, I'm going to touch a little bit on some of the classes that I'll be teaching a little bit later, and that might be able to give you a little bit of a glimpse of what they teach there. But beforehand, I do want to touch on some of the pros of Bermudian. So again, like I said, they are a 2-teacher program. They have a general agriculture CIP code, which just simply means that they're able to teach a wide range of classes rather than specifically horticulture or agriculture mechanics. And then one thing that we could have some room for improvement is the SAE and FFA integration. So just simply having more SAE, more FFA, and showing the kids how awesome it can be for them. So, like I said, I'll be teaching quite a range of classes this spring. So I'll be teaching a class called Agriculture Environmental Awareness, Plant Science, Plant Growth and Marketing, Animal Science, Agriculture Business, and Agricultural Mechanics 1 and 2. So again, what you'll see here is just some of the different topics I'll be teaching in amongst those. You can see that in your brochure. If you wanted to zoom in, ask me questions, please feel free. And I personally believe that no matter who you are, you always have something to bring to the table. You always have success at your fingertips, like I said earlier. So what are some of my strengths that I can bring to Bermudian Springs? Well, I love plants. I have such a love for plants that my entire living room is completely full of them. You can ask my roommate, it kind of drives her nuts because I come home with new plants every day. What that means that I can bring that to the table. I can tell my students all about all the different cool things that they can do with plants, simply as simple as propagation. So that's one thing I bring to the table, as well as a growth mindset. I'm not the type of person that sees failure as failure. I had that mindset a while back. I realized it wasn't beneficial for me, and I changed that. I worked on it, I improved it, and now I'm to the point that I don't see something as a failure, I see something as a way to grow. As well as I'm really good at relationship building. Anybody that I talk to, I try to build that connection with them. I hear what they say, I learn what they like, and then I try to find ways that I can like those same things, or at least learn about them so we can have some conversations. So where do I plan to go from here? Well, I have 3 goals that I would like to bring with me as I go to Bermudian Springs. One of these is simply keeping a list of some of the best practices of classroom management. That's one thing I'm still a little bit intimidated of. I'm kind of overlooking it sometimes, I feel like. So I feel like as I experience these opportunities, keeping a list of those, reflecting, looking back, and learning from them is essential for me. The second thing I'd like to bring is that I'd like to step beyond my comfort zone and create 2 or more immersive labs that push my own knowledge in that given topic. I feel like that's probably going to end up somewhere in my agriculture mechanics class, but no matter where I'm at, I feel like there's always something to learn, some way to step myself outside of that box and be able to learn. So I'm excited to be able to bring that. And then third, I'd also like to articulate a list of 5 or more ways to engage the community into my classroom. Sometimes, again, that's a little bit challenging to do. And so I would like to try to find ways to be able to bring them in, make them feel welcome into the classroom. And then show the students that the community members, they don't bite. They want to help us, they want to help the students, they want to get them where they need to go and where they want to go. And sometimes that might just simply be getting a job at a local business. So I'd like to thank you all for your support and encouragement, and I look forward to seeing you guys a little bit later in the year as an actual educator myself and having that opportunity to be able to learn. So I'd like to thank you all for your time for being here, and I hope to talk to each one of you soon.
We're gonna move now to the questions portion of the presentation. So Kendra will be monitoring the chat on both Zoom and Facebook. You'll be relaying questions that they have, so please put those in the chat box. I'll get us started off, Gabby. If you remember back about almost a year ago now, in 295, one of the first things I had you do was make a knowledge, skills, and dispositions sheet of sorts, where we identified knowledge, skills, and dispositions of ag educators. And I would love for you to provide an example of knowledge, skill, and a disposition. So a set of knowledge, a skill, and a disposition that you think a high-quality ag teacher has.
All right, so I think for knowledge, just simply know the content area that you're teaching, making sure that you have an understanding of what you're about to tell somebody, or at least some form of a start. You can't go into the classroom not knowing absolutely anything. So knowing where you're going and what you want to talk about. Skills-wise, I think it's important to know at least how to be able to handle said lesson that you're teaching. So whether it's changing a tire, you have to have the skill to change a tire. You can't just walk in there and say, all right, kids, we're going to learn how to change a tire. Here's a list of instructions. How about it? You can't do that. So being able to have those skills of what you're about to teach corresponds with the knowledge aspect. And then dispositions, I think just a positive attitude is just one of those that you need to bring to the table to be able to make the students feel as though they want to learn. And if you have that negative attitude, they don't want to learn.
Thank you. Kristen, from the panel?
Yeah, there's one on Facebook. John Stafford says, what topic are you most excited to teach?
I am most excited to teach my agriculture environmental awareness class. I think that that's going to be such a really cool, engaging class that the students are able to relate back to their own backyard. I think having that relationship between their personal lives and the knowledge and content area is essential. And I think that's going to be one way that can very easily be connected for the students. Plus, it's just really cool to be able to teach students about some wildlife, teach students about invasives. And like I said earlier, with the activity I'm going to be bringing into the classroom, I'm so excited to see how their reactions are, because I remember how mine was whenever I took that class. Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the tools that you've acquired to be able to integrate international agriculture into the instruction that you're going to deliver at your cooperating center?
Absolutely. So I unfortunately have not had many classes in the involvement of international agriculture besides my personal experiences. I have taken one international agriculture class so far, and a lot of the information was sometimes a little bit fast paced. So I think just being able to slow down and find ways to be able to connect, okay, this is where this actually came from. So saying, okay, we eat potatoes now, but where did they actually come from? Let's learn about that country. Let's learn about why they grew potatoes. Or even just simply talking about the Irish famine. That's one big thing that happened with potatoes. So let's learn, why did that happen and why did they only resort to potatoes? So I think finding different ways to integrate those, but tools-wise that I have personally experienced, I do not have a lot of those quite yet. I will be returning in the spring and will be completing a lot of those classes. So hopefully once I have those classes completed, I'll be able to bring that more into my classroom and really dive deeper.
Thank you.
Just has one on Facebook. It says, who was your inspiration to get into agricultural education?
It's a fantastic question. It wasn't one particular person, if I'm honest. So it started out with love for 4-H, love for just being outside, My mom never allowed me to just sit in front of the TV. We lived on a fruit farm. I played in the bushes, I picked the blueberries, I had that hands-on. As I grew up, I got more involved in 4-H. I had a horse. I got to see what all 4-H had to offer. Then I decided to go to my technical school, where I had my teacher who was like, "You should be an agriculture educator." I said, "Yeah, I want to be a vet. I am not a vet." And so from there, he had pushed me and taught me how to be an agriculture educator. But then as I got through college, I had that experience. I saw the educators. I saw the impact that they were making. So really, there's not one particular person who has created that inspiration, but rather everybody has inspired me in different ways that has fueled my fire to become an agricultural educator.
I'll jump in with a question. So you'll be teaching and assessing students here very soon, several weeks. So my question to you is, do grades matter or does learning matter? And then also, what is the difference?
Right, that's a great question. I personally believe, and I think this is something that comes down to personal belief for some, but for me, I personally believe that learning is the most important. So seeing where a student starts, seeing where a student ends, seeing that progress of their growth, I think that's the more important part. Grades wise, that just shows you the progress that they've made. So sometimes you might give a student an exam and it's the first of the year and they get a 5 out of 20. To you, that might be low, but then once you get to the end of the year, they're getting 25 out of 20. You see their growth, you've seen their progress, and you see where they've come. And so to me, I personally believe that seeing that growth is the more important part of education. And I think the difference between the two is one's numbers and one's the actual, like, how the students take it in. So to me, I personally lived through a life where I'm like, okay, I need to just get through and learn something new. If I learn one new thing today, I've done something good for myself. Whereas if I get a low grade, sometimes it's defeating. If I get a good grade, I'm like, okay, cool. But like I said, to me, the learning part is much more important.
Gabby, could you please provide me a specific example of academic reinforcement or integration in one of the units you'll be instructing as a student teacher candidate? So I'm looking for a specific example of how you're amplifying and enhancing, reinforcing core academics, whether that's English, math, or science, in one of the units of instruction you'll be delivering in the spring semester.
Yes, absolutely. So throughout all the units that I'm teaching, there's going to be many different ways that I'm integrating science and math specifically, and English. So one prime example would be in my agriculture mechanics class. Although it is some of the simplistic math, we will be learning how to read a micrometer, how to read a micrometer. So you'll have to know those essential math, addition, subtraction, and go from there to be able to read how that micrometer is showing you how much is there.
Thank you.
So Gabby, you talked about SAE and being an integral piece of the curriculum. How do you plan to integrate SAE into your courses? Or you also mentioned about bringing that was an area for improvement with Bermudian. How do you hope to kind of bring that in?
Yes, currently we do have a grading system for that. So basically that grade is just there to be a push to say, okay, this is required. We want you to do this. Many of the students don't really find value in that. So I think the integration aspect of it and trying to improve it, at least with Bermudian, is just being able to sit down with those students who aren't really putting forth that effort to do well. And they're like, okay, it's another grade in the class. I really don't care. Showing them the importance of saying, okay, let's just sit down. You're SAE, you're doing plant science, but you don't seem like you like plants. You seem really more towards the animal aspect. Why don't you look into this SAE? And showing the students that they do have the freedom to change their SAE and be able to build upon that. I think it's really essential, but it takes a little bit more time to be able to sit down and just talk to them and find out what's best fit for them. But like you had asked, integrating that grading part of it. Even though the learning is very essential, you have to have sometimes that little bit of a push just to get the students to do it.
Gabby, circling back to a point that you made during your presentation, just going to throw a word of caution out is be careful in the advice from fellow educators that you take and the advice that you don't take. With that said, as a emerging and future ag educator, how can you be sure that the content you're teaching in your classes is industry relevant?
So we do have an advisory board that would be integrated into the program as well. So just talking to those who are actually in the field, being able to create those connections with them and saying, hey, we need to replace our table saw. What is a good, what would you suggest as what you use in the industry right now to be able to look into bringing that into our classroom and replacing that with something better? So definitely utilizing those who are in the industry right now, as well as individual research, I think is very important to be able to say, okay, I know my own understanding of this technology. I understand they've moved away from this and they're moving into something new, and being able to have that own personal knowledge rather than just hearing it from somebody, I think is also very, very important. What other questions are there?
There are no more questions. Can you help me in thanking and congratulating? That will conclude the public portion of the event. We ask you to retire to 2:14 for refreshments. Our next presentation will begin promptly at 3:30 with Ms. Adeline Reed. We hope to see some of you there.